Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into an analysis that many of you have been asking for, and it's all about Eyes Wide Shut. This Kubrick film is much more than just a cinematic piece. It's an esoteric maze filled with hidden symbolism and deep meaning. Throughout this video, we'll be exploring it from an esoteric perspective, because as some of you might know, Eyes Wide Shut is a work that can't be confined to just one interpretation. Kubrick's genius lies in his ability to weave multiple layers of meaning, connecting themes ranging from materialism and social structures to elite power and secret societies. This analysis is for those of you who have already seen the movie, as we'll be diving into its most hidden details, spoilers included. If you haven't watched it yet, I recommend you do so first, and then come back to this video with a clearer, enriched perspective. Eyes Wide Shut is a puzzle of artistic, philosophical, and mythological references, masterfully connected. And today, we're going to uncover those hidden connections. One of the central themes that Kubrick explores in Eyes Wide Shut is sex, but not merely as a physical act, rather as a universal force that permeates all levels of existence. Kubrick presents it from various angles, in dreams, fantasies, marital relationships, and crucially, in the rituals of secret societies. Through this exploration, Kubrick highlights sex's role as a mechanism of control and power wielded by the elites. In esoteric tradition, sex is not merely a biological act, but a fundamental creative force that can connect the earthly with the divine. For Plato, sexual desire was a microcosmic manifestation of a macrocosmic impulse towards unity and transcendence. In other words, sex reflects the universal order, a principle of attraction, seeking unification and connection with the sacred. In the film, ritualized sex harks back to ancient esoteric practices, such as sacred prostitution, a tradition dating back to ancient Mesopotamia, seen in the cults of goddesses like Inanna, Astarte, and Aphrodite. These cults viewed sex as a divine act of creation and regeneration, an idea Kubrick uses to deepen the relationship between power and desire in the film. Throughout the narrative, Kubrick establishes that sex is not just a physical manifestation, but a form of manipulation and control used by the elites. In Eyes Wide Shut, sex serves a dual purpose. It bridges the sacred and the profane while acting as a symbol of both power and submission. Eroticism drives the characters, but it is also a tool by which the elites exert control, trapping them in an endless cycle of desire. One of the most powerful symbols that Kubrick introduces in Eyes Wide Shut is the Star of Inanna, also known as the Star of Ishtar or Venus, which appears early in the film disguised as a Christmas decoration. This symbol, visible around the 3-minute mark, is the first hint of the movie's esoteric undertones. Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love, fertility, and war, is linked to the planet Venus, the morning star, which was later syncretized in Christian tradition as Lucifer, the bearer of light. The presence of the Star of Inanna at the start of the film suggests that desire, power, and forbidden knowledge will be central themes. Venus, as a symbol of attraction and desire, represents both the pursuit of enlightenment and the potential for downfall. Kubrick uses this symbol to imply that desire is a potent force that can be harnessed by the elites to exert control over others. The film weaves together the themes of Venus and Lucifer to underscore the dual nature of desire. On one hand, it is a creative and unifying force. On the other, in the hands of the elite, it becomes a tool for manipulation and submission.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
The masks in Eyes Wide Shut are one of the film's most powerful and recurring symbols, used to explore the duality between appearance and reality, between what is shown and what is concealed. In the famous scene of the ritualistic sexual party, the masks hide the participants' identities, but they also symbolize the dissociation between outward appearances and inner desires. In esoteric traditions, masks are often used in rituals to allow participants to break free from social conventions and act more authentically, or even uninhibitedly. However, in Eyes Wide Shut, the masks serve a different purpose. Rather than freeing the participants, the masks reinforce the idea of control. The elites do not break free from societal restraints. Instead, they hide behind these masks to exert their power, using desire and sex as tools of domination. Kubrick also uses the masks as a reminder that we all wear masks in our daily lives. The characters in the film, particularly the elites, hide their true desires and intentions behind a facade of civility. In this context, the masks symbolize the hypocrisy and duplicity that govern society, especially within circles of power. This scene clearly illustrates how the elites use ritual to control desire, with the masks playing a crucial role in this dynamic, emphasizing the disconnect between what is presented to the outside world and what is experienced internally. In Eyes Wide Shut, mirrors symbolize the reflection of both external and internal identity. Throughout the film, Kubrick uses mirrors to emphasize introspection and self-awareness. Each time Bill looks into a mirror, it offers an opportunity to witness his growing internal confusion and the duality of his character. On the surface, Bill appears to be a successful and balanced man, but his reflection in the mirrors reveals the dissonance between his outer life and inner desires. In esoteric traditions, mirrors are often seen as gateways to the unconscious. For Bill, each glance into a mirror is an invitation to look beyond his facade and explore the hidden truths about himself. Truths that even he does not fully understand. The mirrors reveal that Bill is not in control of his life. Rather, he is being manipulated by forces beyond his comprehension. The film is filled with reflections and parallels. We see Bill repeating the same behaviors, seemingly trapped in a cycle he cannot break free from. The mirrors serve as a reminder that what we perceive is not always reality, and that the characters, particularly Bill, are caught in a world where their desires and fantasies are not as they appear. This distortion of reality becomes a recurring theme, as Kubrick suggests that the forces controlling the characters are both internal and external. The rainbow is a recurring motif in Eyes Wide Shut and serves as a key symbol that Kubrick uses to explore the illusion of transcendence. It appears in various scenes, from the dialogue with the two models at the party who promise to take Bill beyond the rainbow to the aptly named costume shop, Rainbow Fashions, where Bill rents his mask to infiltrate the secretive sexual ritual. In esoteric traditions, the rainbow is often seen as a symbol of transcendence, representing a bridge between the earthly and the divine. The 7 colors of the rainbow are also linked to the 7 chakras, which correspond to different levels of consciousness. In the film, the rainbow becomes a representation of Bill's desire to transcend his mundane reality, to venture beyond the ordinary and enter a hidden world of mystery and power. However, in Eyes Wide Shut, the rainbow does not lead to transcendence, but rather to a world of fantasy and manipulation. Kubrick cleverly subverts the idea of genuine spiritual elevation. Instead of leading to spiritual liberation, the rainbow in the film symbolizes the trap of desire, a cycle of illusions that the elites use to keep both the characters and, by extension, society under control. What should represent access to higher knowledge is, in fact, a lure that pulls Bill into a realm where fantasy and reality are dangerously intertwined, and he remains. Remains unaware of the full extent of his entanglement. The scene in the mansion in Eyes Wide Shut is perhaps one of the most unsettling and symbolically charged moments in the entire film. Kubrick places the climax of the story here, where protagonist Bill Harford infiltrates a secret ritual hosted by an elite whose nature and purposes are veiled behind a facade of power and control. This sequence is not only crucial to the narrative, but also key to understanding the esoteric message Kubrick seeks to convey. The mansion used for this scene is Waddesdon Manor, a grand estate that once belonged to the Rothschild family, a dynasty surrounded by conspiracy theories regarding their influence over global finance and politics. Kubrick's choice of this location is deliberate, linking financial elites to the hidden powers that manipulate the fate of ordinary people. The mention of the Rothschilds is no coincidence. In the 1970s, they hosted lavish masquerade balls, many of which were rumored to involve esoteric rituals, perfectly aligning with the atmosphere of secrecy and domination that Kubrick aims to depict in this scene. The sexual ritual in the mansion is not a simple act of indulgence. It is deeply ritualized and steeped in esoteric symbolism. The participants wear Venetian masks, robes, and follow a strict protocol, evoking ancient secret societies like the Mystery Circles or the Hellfire Club, where power rituals and secret initiations were central. The masks, while hiding identities, allow participants to engage in acts that starkly contrast with the civilized lives they present to the world. Far from a mere display of lust, this ritual channels power in a structured manner. With his usual mastery, Kubrick turns this setting into a space where ancient rituals are echoed, perpetuating the power dynamics of the elite. The film suggests that these modern elites are not so different from ancient ruling classes who held secret ceremonies to maintain their grip on power. In the mansion, everything is calculated and controlled, from the hypnotic chants to the ritual movements of the participants. These ceremonies channel sexual energy, not just for physical gratification, but as a means of manipulating and exercising control. The symbolism of the masks is particularly powerful. During the ritual, all participants wear masks, reinforcing the idea of duality and anonymity. Throughout the film, masks illustrate the separation between public identity and private desires. In this scene, the masks serve to highlight that the elites not only hide their true nature from others, but also from themselves, reinforcing a power structure built on secrecy and manipulation. At this ritual, Kubrick hints at how elites maintain their dominance over society. The participants, all belonging to the upper echelons, use sex as a tool of control and power. The ritual is meticulously designed, with defined hierarchies and roles, suggesting that every detail, every movement, has a hidden purpose. The use of sex in this ceremony serves a purpose beyond carnal pleasure. It channels energy and reinforces the power dynamics among the participants. Additionally, the music accompanying this scene, an inverted liturgical chant, enhances the atmosphere of perverted sacredness. Kubrick uses this music to remind us that, while what we are seeing is disturbing, it carries a ritualistic intent. This connects directly to the notion that ritualized sex is not merely a physical act, but an esoteric mechanism of power channeling. These elites are not mere agents of lust, but custodians of forbidden, dark knowledge. Another significant detail is the participants' lack of emotional involvement, reinforcing the idea that this is not just a sexual event. The absence of emotion or attachment suggests that they are executing a power ritual, a mechanical ceremony where everything is carefully calculated. The cold, controlled atmosphere contrasts sharply with the idea of chaotic lust. This meticulous control over the ritual strengthens the notion that what Kubrick portrays is not a simple sexual gathering, but a ritualistic channeling of eros. Kubrick also uses this scene to showcase Bill's isolation and vulnerability. In a room full of people, Bill feels alone and out of place. Although he believes he is witnessing something exclusive, he fails to realize that he is being manipulated by forces beyond his comprehension. The mansion and the ritual are not only a manifestation of the elite's power, but also a representation of the esoteric world, Bill has entered without understanding its implications. Through this ritual, Kubrick suggests that the true nature of the elites is hidden, and their power lies in their ability to control what is hidden and forbidden. The use of the mansion, with its connection to the Rothschilds, reinforces this idea. The elites not only control the visible aspects of society, such as politics and economics, but also dominate deeper dimensions, those that are inaccessible to ordinary people. The ritual in the mansion is a metaphor for how these ruling classes use their esoteric knowledge to maintain their position of power. Kubrick shows us that these elites are not simply rich or powerful, but guardians of hidden secrets, secrets that cement their control over the world.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Bill Harford's journey in Eyes Wide Shut can be interpreted as a descent into hell, where he confronts not only the external shadows represented by the elites and their rituals, but also the internal shadows of his own psyche. From the outset, Bill is portrayed as a successful doctor with a seemingly perfect life. But as the film progresses, it becomes clear that he is deeply disconnected from his true nature. Bill's real enemy is not the hidden elite, but his repressed desires, insecurities, and materialism. He is drawn into a cycle of lust and jealousy, and his failure to acknowledge these impulses leads him into increasingly dangerous situations. Kubrick shows us that the forces truly controlling Bill are not external, but lie within his own psyche. Throughout his odyssey, Bill confronts his own dark desires, but never reaches a true understanding of his situation. While he appears to be making choices, in reality, he is being guided along a predetermined path by his own unchecked impulses and desires, which he fails to fully comprehend. Ultimately, Eyes Wide Shut is a film about the power of desire and how it can be used to manipulate people. Kubrick reveals that those unaware of the esoteric forces governing their lives are doomed to be controlled by them, both by external elites and by the internal forces they fail to understand. Since its release, Eyes Wide Shut has sparked countless alternative theories regarding its meaning and symbolism, many of which focus on the hidden power and elites that Kubrick portrays in the film. The enigmatic nature of the plot, esoteric symbols, and character ambiguity allow for multiple interpretations that go beyond the surface narrative. Welcome to Esoteric Guardian. Today, we delve into the dark and enigmatic symbolism of Alice in Wonderland, a work that, far from being a mere children's tale, is imbued with hidden messages, esoteric references, and allegories that have fascinated and unsettled generations. Published in 1865 and written by Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, better known by his pen name Lewis Carroll, this story has been interpreted in multiple ways over time. Behind the apparent innocence of its pages, we find traces of secret societies, initiation rituals, references to altered states of consciousness, and deep, unsettling philosophical and occult concepts. Could it be that Lewis Carroll encoded messages that only a select few can decipher? Is this merely a fantasy, or are we looking at a work filled with esoteric symbolism, even used in processes of mind control and psychological manipulation? Alice Pleasance Liddell is not just a fictional character. Before becoming the girl who chased a white rabbit into an absurd world, she was a real child, flesh and blood, and the muse of Lewis Carroll. What few know is that the relationship between the author and his inspiration has been shrouded in a veil of mystery, controversy, and secrets that to this day send shivers down the spine. Carroll met Alice when she was just 4 years old. Immediately, the child became his obsession. For years, he spent countless hours with her and her sisters, inventing stories and games that would later give birth of Alice in Wonderland. But behind the apparent innocence, there are unsettling details that have led many to question the true nature of their relationship. The writer had a peculiar passion: photography. In the Victorian era, photography was a relatively new art, and Carroll explored it fervently, but with a recurring and disturbing theme. Young girls in poses that, seen through today's eyes, are deeply unsettling. It is known that he took multiple portraits of girls in settings that we could call suggestive, which I cannot explicitly name because YouTube would demonetize the video, all under the pretext of capturing the purity of childhood. Even in his time, these images caused discomfort. Many were deliberately destroyed, and others disappeared without a trace. What remains is enough for some historians and critics to suspect that Carroll crossed lines that were only beginning to be questioned in his era. But the most disturbing part is what we will never know. In 1863, suddenly and without explanation, the Liddell family cut all ties with Carroll. From one day to the next, his presence in Alice's life ended completely. What happened? No one knows for sure. Crucial pages of his diary were torn out and never recovered. Theories about this abrupt break vary, but they all point to a sinister possibility. Some believe that Carroll may have asked for Alice's hand in marriage when she was only 11 years old, something that, while strange, was not entirely unthinkable in the Victorian era. Others suggest that the Liddell family discovered something far more disturbing, something so dark that they decided to erase the evidence and banish his memory. What remains is an unsettling void, an absence of answers that only fuels the worst suspicions. Was Lewis Carroll simply an innocent man with an unusual fixation on childhood? Or was it something far more sinister, hidden beneath the disguise of a fairy tale? The story begins with Alice, a girl trapped in the monotony of her world. While her sister reads a book without illustrations, she feels restless, as if her mind is destined for something greater. Her dissatisfaction is the first indication that she is awakening from the dream of common reality. It is no coincidence that she is a child, for in esoteric tradition, the child represents the initiate, one who has not yet been fully conditioned by the structures of society. Then, the white rabbit appears. Dressed in a vest and holding a pocket watch, He mutters, "Oh dear, I shall be late." Without hesitation, Alice follows him. This is the breaking point from the ordinary world, the threshold that separates everyday reality from the realm of mystery. In esoteric terms, the White Rabbit plays the role of the psychopomp, the initiatory guide who leads the soul through spiritual transition. He is the equivalent of Hermes Trismegistus in Hermetic tradition, Virgil in Dante's Divine Comedy, or Anubis in Egyptian mythology. But the White Rabbit is also a slave to time. He is obsessed with the hour, urgency, and the fear of being late. Here, another occult concept emerges: time as a prison. In alchemy and Hermeticism, linear time is considered an illusion imposed upon human consciousness. Following the White Rabbit is akin to entering this cycle of worry, clocks, and anxiety, an endless chase where time rules over existence. Alice falls down the rabbit hole, but her fall is not merely physical, it is symbolic. In all esoteric traditions, the initiate must descend into the underworld before they can be reborn. In the mysteries of Eleusis, neophytes spent days in complete darkness before receiving revelation. In alchemy, Nigredo is the stage of the decomposition of matter before its transmutation into gold. Alice undergoes the same process. She falls, floating past disordered objects as her perception of reality fractures. When she lands, she finds herself in a hallway filled with locked doors. This represents the liminal state in esoteric initiation, the intermediate space where the old world no longer exists, but the new one has yet to be revealed. At the center of the room, she finds a golden key and a bottle labeled "Drink Me." Here, another alchemical symbol emerges. In ancient transformation rituals, initiates consumed substances to expand their perception. In the Eleusinian mysteries, a sacred drink was consumed. In alchemy, the elixir of immortality was sought. Alice drinks the potion, and her body begins to change size, losing control over her own form. This is the collapse of the ego. In alchemy, transformation begins with the dissolution of the previous identity. In terms of psychological manipulation, this is the moment when the victim experiences a dissociation from reality, making them more vulnerable to reprogramming. Alice passes through the door and enters Wonderland. Here, everything becomes more chaotic and symbolic. Her first significant encounter is with the blue caterpillar, who smokes his pipe and asks her the fundamental question: "Who are you?" In esoteric tradition, the master does not provide answers, but pushes the disciple to find them on their own. The caterpillar represents the initiatory teacher, similar to gurus in Hinduism or mentors in secret societies. But he is also a symbol of transformation. Soon, he will become a butterfly, just as Alice must evolve on her own spiritual journey. From this point onward, Wonderland becomes a labyrinth of trials. Each character Alice meets subjects her to mental challenges, absurd logic games, and contradictions. This mirrors the initiatory rites of esoteric societies, where the initiate is tested in ways that challenge their understanding of reality. In mind, control systems, exposure to contradictory information is a technique used to fragment the psyche and make it more susceptible to suggestion. One of the most representative encounters in this phase is the tea party with the Mad Hatter and the March Hare. This is not just an eccentric gathering, but a representation of time as a prison. The Mad Hatter is trapped in an eternal loop, forever stuck at tea time because time has stopped for him. This reflects a concept found in Hermeticism and occult philosophy. Time is not linear, but those who fail to understand this become trapped in its endless repetition. In alchemical tradition, mercury is a key element. and the Mad Hatter was inspired by 19th century hat makers who suffered from mercury poisoning, which drove them insane. This is tied to the idea of wisdom taken to the extreme, where deep knowledge can lead to alienation and madness. Another fundamental character in this phase is the Cheshire Cat, who appears and disappears, leaving only his unsettling grin behind. In esotericism, he symbolizes hidden knowledge, something that is never fully revealed, but only understood in fragments. His famous phrase, "We're all mad here," is not just a joke, but an allusion to a Gnostic principle. In a world of illusions, the only truth is madness. Alice begins to realize that the rules of Wonderland are arbitrary, that there is no real order, only chaos disguised as logic. This is the point where the initiation reaches its questioning phase. The initiate starts to see beyond the illusion. However, she is still trapped within the game. She has yet to reach the breaking point where she will confront the ultimate authority of the system. This first half of the story shows her going through ego fragmentation, initiatory confusion, and symbolic trials, but she has not yet reached the great revelation. She has not fully awakened, but she is no longer the Alice who fell down the rabbit hole. Alice has passed through the initial phase of her journey. She has experienced the fragmentation of her identity, the questioning of reality, and the chaos of Wonderland. But her trial is not yet over. Now, she must face the ultimate manifestation of the system, the authoritarian power that governs this absurd reality. Her path leads her to the Queen of Hearts' garden, a place where logic remains a farce. There, she finds the gardeners painting white roses red because they planted the wrong color and now fear execution. This is a symbol of reality manipulation. Instead of accepting mistakes, they are hidden, masked, and altered to create the illusion of order. It is the reflection of a system where truth does not matter, only the illusion of control. Then, the Queen of Hearts appears, screaming her infamous order, "Off with their heads!"
Off with their heads!
The Queen is the symbol of absolute tyranny, of arbitrary power that does not require reason, only fear. In esoteric terms, she represents the demiurge, the entity that in Gnosticism imposes a false reality upon the spirit, condemning it to ignorance. Her reign is based on blind obedience. Her subjects fear her punishments, but they are rarely carried out. She is the embodiment of domination systems that exist only because the dominated believe in them. The Queen's croquet game is a key scene in the second half of the story. It is played with flamingos as mallets and hedgehogs as balls, and the entire system is complete chaos. Nothing functions properly, the rules constantly change, and the outcome depends entirely on the Queen's whims. Carol did not choose these elements randomly. In Victorian society, flamingos were symbols of luxury and false elegance, while hedgehogs represented the common people. The Queen wields flamingos as tools of power, symbolizing the aristocracy, and strikes hedgehogs who attempt to resist and escape. It is a satirical representation of power dynamics where the lower classes are used and discarded at the convenience of the elite. But it is also an allegory of illusionary control. The system only works as long as everyone pretends it does. Alice begins to see the fragility of the world around her. Unlike the other characters, she does not fear the Queen, and with each challenge, her confidence grows. This is the final phase of esoteric awakening, where the initiate starts to clearly see the structures of power and their true nature. At last, Alice is taken to trial in a ridiculous court. She is accused of a nonsensical crime, the evidence is absurd, and the rules shift at the Queen's convenience. This scene symbolizes the farce of justice in a world ruled by arbitrary power. The trial is not a mechanism of truth, but a tool of control. The legal system, here presented as a parody, exists only to validate the ruler's power. But something has changed in Alice. She is no longer the confused girl who fell down the rabbit hole. She has gone through the initiatory process. She has seen the chaos of Wonderland. She has understood that the rules are an illusion. And at the crucial moment, she faces the Queen and speaks the words that shatter the spell. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." And with that single phrase, Wonderland collapses. This is the moment of final revelation. In esoteric tradition, the initiate can only complete their transformation when they see beyond the illusion. Alice has realized that the world she has been trapped in is fragile, a construct based on fear and obedience. By defying it, she destroys it. It is the equivalent of Buddhist enlightenment, of Gnostic transcendence. Then, Alice wakes up. She is back in the real world, in the field where it all began. But the most unsettling question remains unanswered. Has she truly awakened? A mere children's tale is imbued with hidden messages, esoteric references, and allegories that have fascinated and unsettled generations. Published in 1865 and written by Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, better known by his pen name Lewis Carroll, this story has been interpreted in multiple ways over time. Behind the apparent innocence of its pages, we find traces of secret societies, initiation rituals, references to altered states of consciousness, and deep, unsettling philosophical and occult concepts. Could it be that Lewis Carroll encoded messages that only a select few can decipher? Is this merely a fantasy, or are we looking at a work filled with esoteric symbolism, even used in processes of mind control and psychological manipulation? Alice Pleasance Little is not just a fictional character. Before becoming the girl who chased a white rabbit into an absurd world, she was a real child, flesh and blood, and the muse of Lewis Carroll. What few know is that the relationship between the author and his inspiration has been shrouded in a veil of mystery, controversy, and secrets that to this day. But the most unsettling question remains unanswered. Has she truly awakened? For decades, Alice in Wonderland has been the subject of multiple conspiracy theories, suggesting that Lewis Carroll's work is far more than just a children's fantasy story. Some believe it is a coded narrative about mind control and psychological manipulation, while others suggest it represents the effects of psychoactive substances or even serves as a hidden message about secret societies and their operations in the world. Its symbolism is too precise to be mere coincidence, and the connections to occult practices and mind control programs have been studied by researchers of the mysterious for years. One of the most unsettling aspects is the link between Alice in Wonderland and mind control techniques, specifically K-Ultra. This program, developed by the CIA in the 1950s and 1960s, used drugs, hypnosis, disorientation, and trauma to fragment the victim's psyche and create new controlled identities. In the story, Alice undergoes a similar transformation, falling down the rabbit hole, losing control of her size, and facing illogical and absurd situations that challenge her perception of reality. These same methods were used in MK Ultra to induce dissociative states, In programming techniques, victims were subjected to nonsensical phrases and extreme environmental changes to destabilize their identity, exactly what Alice experiences with the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Queen of Hearts. The constant distortion of reality in the story has also led some to suggest that Alice in Wonderland is a disguised narrative of hallucinogenic drug experiences. Carroll wrote the book during a time when drug experimentation was common in intellectual circles, and the references are undeniable. The blue caterpillar smokes a pipe, which is a clear allusion to opium, a widely used drug in Victorian England. Alice changes size after consuming liquids and mushrooms, a representation of altered perception similar to LSD and psilocybin effects. Even falling down the rabbit hole resembles a trance-like state induced by psychedelic substances. It is no coincidence that decades later, the book was embraced by the psychedelic culture of the 1960s as a symbol of the trip into other dimensions of consciousness. Another theory suggests that the story is laden with occult messages and references to secret societies. Carroll had deep knowledge of mathematics and philosophy, but was also fascinated by riddles, inverted logic, and symbols, elements fundamental to mystery schools and Freemasonry. Wonderland operates as a world governed by hidden laws, where only those who understand its logic can navigate it. Alice is an initiate, passing through trials similar to the rituals of esoteric societies, where aspirants are subjected to challenges that force them to rethink their understanding of reality. The Queen of Hearts represents the tyrannical authority of the system, an echo of the Gnostic demiurge, the entity that keeps humanity trapped in a false reality. By the end of the story, Alice realizes that the Queen's power is an illusion and defies it, a message reminiscent of occult teachings about awakening from the illusion of material existence. Even darker interpretations claim that Carroll subtly exposed the dynamics of abuse within the Victorian aristocracy. His obsession with Alice Liddell, the real girl who inspired the story, has been debated for years. In this context, Wonderland could be a metaphor for a world where children are subjected to the will of powerful and capricious adults, a reflection of abuse disguised as games and absurd logic that prevents the victim from comprehending their reality. Each of these elements suggests that Alice in Wonderland is far more than a children's story. It is a tale layered with symbolism that has sparked suspicions for over a century. Was Carroll merely a storyteller, or was he delivering a hidden message about the true workings of the world? The book remains an enigma, and its impact on popular culture suggests that its meaning runs far deeper than it appears. Just like in Wonderland, nothing is what it seems, and the real answers may be hidden behind the veil of the story. At its core, Alice in Wonderland is not just a whimsical tale. It is a roadmap for awakening, disguised as a nonsensical dream. Whether viewed through the lens of esoteric initiation, psychological fragmentation, or societal control, its message remains the same. Perception is the key to power, and the world is only as real as we believe it to be. Alice's journey mirrors the path of every individual who has ever dared to question the nature of reality. She starts as an innocent, accepting the structures around her, but the deeper she descends, the more she is forced to confront contradictions, absurdity, and illusion. Wonderland is a perfect simulation of a controlled system, a world where rules are arbitrary, logic bends to authority, and fear sustains power. But its greatest weakness is that none of it is real. This is where Alice in Wonderland becomes something more than fiction. It is a warning, a reminder that we too live within constructs, social, political, even psychological, that only exist because we accept them. The Queen's authority is meaningless the moment Alice sees through it. The court trial collapses once she refuses to participate. Her true power is not in fighting the system, but in recognizing that it has no real control over her. Yet the most unsettling question remains. Did Alice truly wake up, or did she only step into another illusion? The story doesn't tell us. Because it's not just about Alice. It's about us. If you want to keep